ਨਵਜੋਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਸਿੱਧੂ ਇੱਕ ਮਿਸਗਾਈਡਡ ਮਿਸਾਈਲ ਹੈ ਜਿਹਦਾ ਕੋਈ ਕੰਟਰੋਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ। ਕਿਤੇ ਮਰਜ਼ੀ ਡਾਇਰੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਚ ਹੋ ਸਕਦੀ ਹੈ, कितने मर्जी बज सकती है, अपने तो ही बज सकती है।
देखो, जो पार्टी परिवार के घोंसले में सिमटी हो उसका इसी तरह का हश्र होता है।
Hello everyone, you're watching News Epicentre with me, Maria Shakil. The rumblings continue in the Punjab Congress. A day after Rahul Gandhi denied he had any meeting scheduled with Navjot Singh Sidhu, his sister Priyanka Gandhi Vadra met him amidst his ongoing feud with Punjab Chief Minister Captain Amarinder Singh. But Amarinder Singh, one of the biggest regional satraps of the Congress, was denied a meeting with the Gandhis last week. Navjot Sidhu has pressed the Gandhis for a larger role in the Congress ahead of the elections next year and has been openly taking on the Chief Minister, accusing him of corruption and misgovernance. Sources have told CNN News18 that an organizational reshuffle will take place soon and a new state unit chief is likely to be appointed. Will Sidhu get that top post? Will Sidhu's meeting with Priyanka Gandhi only further alienate Captain Amarinder Singh, a dyed-in-the-wool Congress leader, and perhaps also send that message that the Congress is ready to replace satraps with new leaders? Is the Congress in Punjab a shaky house of cards? Joining me first on the show to give his take is the Congress MP from Anandpur Sahib in Punjab, Manish Tewari. Mr. Tewari, I appreciate your time. So what's wrong with the Congress party? Fact is that it is struggling to put its house in order, be it in Punjab or in Chhattisgarh. How will you counter opposition when the party is witnessing massive infightings?
There is no reason to swing from the sublime to the ridiculous. The Congress party in Punjab is absolutely united. We are integrated. And let me give you a holistic perspective. The perspective is as follows. In 2017, the Indian National Congress won 77 out of the 117 seats. This is the maximum any party has ever won since Punjab, or the current form of Punjab, came into existence in 1966. After that, we won 8 out of the 13 parliament seats, 3 by-elections, all panchayat elections, all municipal corporations, all municipal councils across the state of Punjab in an overwhelming manner under the leadership of our Chief Minister, Captain Amarinder Singh. Now, there are certain people who have a certain point of view as to how we should go into the 2022 elections. And in order to hear those points of view, the Congress leadership constituted a 3-member committee under the leadership of Mr. Mallikarjun Kharge, who's our leader of opposition in the Rajya Sabha. They've heard everybody out. The committee has submitted its report to the Congress president. And you would find that the Congress party, which is absolutely battle ready and ship-shape, will go into the 2022 elections with renewed vigor and confidence, and we are confident that we will get the blessings of the people of Punjab.
Mr. Tewari, you talked about electoral victories under Captain's leadership. Then in that case, the sitting Chief Minister should be rewarded for leading the party. Instead, he is summoned to Delhi to appear before a panel. And then Captain Amarinder Singh doesn't get an audience with the Gandhis, and instead, Priyanka Gandhi meets Sidhu, who joined the Congress in 2017 for 2 hours, and he is the same leader who has challenged the Captain's leadership.
First of all, Captain Amarinder Singh was not summoned by the panel. That is inappropriate language, for the lack of a better word. He was requested by the panel to come and discuss with them what should be the strategy, since we've got 8 months left for the Vidhan Sabha elections. And insofar as his interactions with the leadership are concerned, Captain Amarinder Singh is not someone who was born yesterday. He spent a half a century in public life. There's possibly nobody who understands Punjab better than he does. And his relationship with the leadership is absolutely seamless. So therefore, rather than tilt at windmills and base our observations and conjecture, I think the fact is Punjab, under the leadership of Captain Amarinder Singh, has done well in the past 4.5 years. The COVID-19 situation in Punjab has been better managed than most parts of the country, notwithstanding the non-cooperation by the central government. And even on all other parameters, governance parameters, education, health, and other fundamental human development parameters, the state has fared very well. Yes, when you get into an election mode, obviously, there are all kinds of allegation and innuendo which is hurled around by people who are vying for power. But I think over the past 4.5 years, the manner in which people have reposed their faith in the Indian National Congress, in the leadership of Captain Amarinder Singh, given the fact that we are facing a very badly divided and splintered opposition, I think we would be able to get the confidence and the blessings of the people again.
Sir, since you're on ground in Punjab, I want to understand, what does Navjot Singh Sidhu bring to the Congress table that Gandhi is in fact chose to meet him? How do you see this meeting, and do you believe this may lead to any kind of amicable solution? Many would say that multiplicity of power centers in the Congress is leading to chaos and confusion. For example, while Captain Amarinder Singh won Congress the state, Sidhu reportedly has the full backing of the Gandhis.
In my limited understanding of politics, and I would be completing 4 decades of my association with the Congress party in this month of July 2021, my understanding is that elections are fought on issues. Personalities may be important, but personalities do not have an overriding impact on either electoral strategy or its outcomes. And therefore, insofar as issues are concerned, the fundamental issue that Punjab faces today is the complete and absolute obtuseness with which the NDA BJP government has handled this whole issue with regard to farm laws. It's been 7 months. Our farmers have been sitting on the borders of Delhi, men, women, children, in scorching heat, in cold winter, in pelting rain. But unfortunately, the central government is completely unmoved. And these farmers know that they have the complete backing of the Indian National Congress, the state government, in their just and legitimate struggle. And so therefore, these are the issues which are going to shape the outcome of the elections, and where people have stood by them rather than A personality or B personality.
Okay. Mr. Tewari, it's not just the infighting that is the cause of concern for your party. Fact is, Aam Aadmi Party Supremo Arvind Kejriwal has already started campaigning. Yesterday, he announced 24-hour electricity, 300 units for free, and also a waiving of previous power bills if his party wins Punjab. Don't you feel added anti-incumbency would further make it difficult for the Congress in the assembly polls 2022?
I don't see that anti-incumbency on the ground, A. And number 2, if the AAP was so resurgent, then why are AAP MLAs knocking on the doors of the Indian National Congress? Only last week, 3 of them joined the party, including their former leader of opposition, Mr. Sukhpal Singh Khaira. I know of 6 others who are knocking on the doors of the Congress party. There was one gentleman who joined the Indian National Congress during my Lok Sabha elections in 2019. So therefore, if the AAP was actually so resurgent as the Delhi media thinks that they are, it begs a question, then why are MLAs and their people deserting the AAP in droves?
Okay, my last question to you, sir. As the Congress leadership certainly is dealing with this, I would say, firefighting in Punjab, trouble is also brewing for the party in the majority of states going to polls in 2022. In UP, Jitin Prasada just quit the party. Other state leaders are accusing party chief Ajay Lallu of sidelining him in Goa. There is another crisis with Lok Sabha MP Francis has said on record, and he has in fact attacked the state chief in Gujarat. Party is yet to appoint state chief. Don't you think you have to give that message that things are in control?
You've asked not one question, but a multiple series of questions, and I have an answer to each one of them. But unfortunately, your show does not allow us that time. But let me tell you, as we head into the next phase of this government's second tenure, not only will you see a resurgent Congress, but you will see a resurgent opposition willing to absolutely safeguard the idea of India, or the founding idea of India, which unfortunately has been squelched in the past 7 years. So what you see really are straws in the wind. What I see is the bigger picture of a country completely and absolutely disillusioned with the NDA BJP government, and especially after the criminal mishandling of the second wave of COVID-19.
All right, Manish Tewari, always a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you for speaking to CNN News 18.
Talking to you as always.
We bring in my guests now. RP Singh, BJP spokesperson; Supriya, spokesperson of the Congress Party; Saba Naqvi, senior journalist. Supriya, I'm going to begin with you. Sidhu has openly challenged your chief minister in Punjab, has accused him of corruption and misgovernance. Captain Amarinder Singh isn't any ordinary leader. He is the leader who has won you Punjab. How does this signalling of Gandhi's backing Sidhu over Captain help the Congress?
You know, quite frankly, the signaling is only being read by you and certain sections of the media. And I don't mean to point fingers at you in particular, but I love the obsession that there is with the Congress party to highlight what seemingly, and quote unquote, seemingly is wrong with us. I can point you in 10 different directions of what's wrong with the BJP, the infight in Rajasthan, the 265 MLAs who did not just write against Yogi Adityanath, but also sat on a protest dharna inside the Vidhan Sabha, the equations between Narottam Mishra ji and Shivraj Singh Chauhan ji, the equations between Mr. Punia and Ms. Vasundhara Raje. You know, politics is about ambition. And I'm not going to shy away from admitting that, yes, everybody in politics is ambitious. And there comes a time when you want to attain higher goals, you want to scale further heights. If politics is about ambition, and ambition is on both sides of the political spectrum, there's nothing wrong with that. What is wrong with is the selective reading of political development, so to say. The selective reading of a meeting that happened in Delhi. What do you know about this meeting? What have you been briefed on this meeting for? What have you been told about the backing, quote unquote, about this meeting? And I don't mean you in particular as a journalist. I mean people who are conjecturing. So I think there's a time and space to conjecture. There's a time and space to point fingers, because I can point fingers in different directions. I also think at 7:10 p.m. on the 30th of June, is this the big issue that the primetime channel should be discussing? I can point you in 10 different issues that we should actually be prioritizing over it, whether it's vaccination, whether it's farmers, whether it's
we have done
issue.
that.
The government of the day,
Supriya,
the government of the
for the
day
last
want us to
month
discuss these
and
issues.
more, we have been discussing vaccine drives, we have been discussing corona crisis on News Epicenter. Let me bring Saba Naqvi as well. Saba, you know, here is Supriya telling us that this is selective reading of infighting in a particular party, while there is infighting also in the BJP. My question is it just about that, or is it Congress also not able to manage that conflicting ambitions?
So, hi Maria, I do think that the Congress has a problem about managing conflicting ambitions. We've already seen the consequence in Madhya Pradesh, where Jyotiraditya Scindia left and took a government away with him. There is an ongoing problem in Rajasthan. Now, in Punjab, right now, it's become highly evident that Sidhu is speaking out against the sitting chief minister. I am not going... So, the problem with the Congress is, the problem is at the center. There is a lack of clarity, which is why the media does these stories. There is still not a clarity on what exactly Priyanka Gandhi's locus standi is. I understand the Gandhis are important, you know, to meet Sidhu. when Rahul doesn't meet him. It does, in an age of non-stop media coverage, the Congress should accept that this is going to get covered. Punjab is heading for elections right now, and it is going to be important. From my information, the Congress feels that they need to make sure that Sidhu doesn't leave the party and join AAP, just because Punjab is one state they hope to retain.
Okay.
You know, there are not too many states left right now for the Congress. Punjab is one state they hope to retain.
Okay.
So they're trying to handle that. Whether they're handling it successfully is, we'll see whether Sidhu has been appeased. It's clear that Aam Aadmi Party would have liked to have him on their side. So far, I don't have the information from inside.
Before I go back to Supriya, a quick word from RP Singh. I'm coming to you, Supriya. Mr. Singh, what Supriya is saying is fine. Why should opposition parties, I mean your party, be interested in what's happening in the Congress party? You have much to explain as far as your own house is concerned.
Maria, we are not here to discuss our party. Rather, we told you to discuss which party. It's your channel which has decided what party to pick or what issue to discuss. Shreya has some problem with you picking up Congress party, so you tomorrow come and discuss BJP. I'll discuss BJP tomorrow with you, not an issue at all. But let's discuss what you called me for. That is Punjab, Chhattisgarh, Rajasthan, what's happening in Congress. The problem is not with Punjab or Chhattisgarh or with Rajasthan. Problem is at the dining table of General. The house, the family is divided, and it's affecting the party also. It's affecting the states also. What's happening in Punjab? Captain is being supported. Everyone who's captain is being supported by Sonia Gandhi Ji, and Sidhu is being supported by Rahul Gandhi and Priyanka Vadra.
So that divide is hampering the progress of the state. Sidhu is on record saying that there is a mining mafia. He's on record. I can send you videos. So there is a mining mafia which is working. There's a liquor mafia which is working. There's a drug mafia which is working. He's on record. And he's saying this is between the captain and the Akali Dal, that they one term they take, other term they take, and they keep the government with the government, Punjab government with two parties. And also, the bigger issue is the discretion of the Guru Granth Sahib. No one is talking about that. The biggest issue. Captain came with promise that he'll ensure that people are punished, people are booked for that. And also, Captain Sahib promised some 90,000 crore rupees waiver of the loan waiver of the farmers. I mean, I need to know how much money has been waived.
Okay.
As far as best of my knowledge, 4,000 crore has been waived.
Fine. Let me go back to Supriya. Supriya, is Navjot Singh Sidhu such a tall leader that he can't be told to fall in line? Instead, a veteran is told to adjust him?
Sorry, I lost your audio there. Can you just repeat your question?
I'm saying, is Navjot Singh Sidhu, who joined the Congress only in 2017, such a tall leader in the Congress party or Congress scheme of things now that he cannot be told to fall in line? Instead, a veteran, a dyed-in-the-wool Congress leader, someone who has led your party to multiple election victories, is told to adjust him?
You know, because you've used that term twice over, dyed-in-the-wool, I'm going to answer that question. The reality is that nobody knows what that meeting was about. But look at media sitting on this high pulpit and deciding everything that happened in that meeting. The media has also made people believe that the chief minister asked for meeting with the Congress president. Put your hand on your heart and tell me that if a Congress chief minister asks for a meeting, will Mr. Gandhi refuse to see him? I mean, let's talk logical things. The reality is that in our quest to be carried away by what the government wants us to talk about, let us not miss the wood for the trees. You really think the Congress chief minister and somebody as senior as Captain Singh wants to meet Mrs. Gandhi, and Mrs. Gandhi is going to turn away and say no?
Supriya,
absolutely not. Obviously, he did not.
Captain Amarinder Singh, wasn't he summoned to Delhi to appear before the panel? And those were reports, that he was denied an audience was coming from reporters who cover the Congress party.
Great, very good question. I will answer that now. I think my senior colleague Manish Tewari has already answered the question, but I'm going to repeat what he says. Someone, for the lack of another word, is a very inappropriate word to be used by a chief minister, an elected chief minister. I would expect someone like you, as someone whose work I admire and respect, to refrain from using words that the rest of the media is using. Don't fall into that trap. The second thing I want to say is that the Congress supporters may put out things that may be entirely untrue. And I'm sorry to say that. Did Captain Singh ask for a meeting with Mrs. Gandhi? Can anybody vouch for that? The answer to that is no. He did not ask for a meeting, and so there was no meeting. That's the first thing. The second thing, and I want to say, it's very convenient for the BJP spokesperson to say this is not about the Congress. Actually, sir, the problem is that the media doesn't discuss what happens in your party. The media doesn't discuss that why 265 MLAs in Uttar Pradesh write against Chief Minister Adityanath. Why do they sit on a dharna within the assembly itself? Why is it that Vasundhara Raje and Mr. Punia are not on talking terms? What's happening between Gajendra Shekhawat and Vasundhara Raje? They don't talk about Narottam Mishra, why he storms out of a meeting and goes to the RSS Pramukh there. They don't talk about these things. They don't talk about the ministers in Karnataka meeting the governor and writing against your Chief Minister Yadurappa. Which is why when we get a chance, we will raise these issues. Because I also feel in a setup, in a political setup, these things will come up.
Supriya, tell me. Ahead of the elections, when you heard from Manish Tewari, he says that Captain Amarinder Singh has won elections for the Congress party. We saw that in Lok Sabha 2019, he was the one state which almost held on to the Congress surge, in the sense it was not able, the BJP could not really sweep Congress, Punjab could not do much in Punjab. So that was evident. Shouldn't this discussion not take place at all? I mean, in the sense that why should there be even a discussion even within the Congress party that should these elections be under the leadership of somebody who has won them the state?
No, but I don't think that is the point of discussion, which is exactly what I'm trying to tell you, and I think which is exactly what Mr. Tewari was trying to explain, that there is no discussion on that front. Of course, the sitting Chief Minister, Mr. Singh, there can always be multiple points of view on how we go into an election. And would you grant us the liberty to do that within our own fold? I think every party has that liberty.
Saba, here, Supriya clearly says that we should not be discussing Congress here. But look at what is happening.
Please discuss the Congress.
Not just
what I'm saying.
Okay, not just Punjab. The crisis is also in Chhattisgarh, where the Congress won decisively and convincingly, but there is a power tussle that is happening now between the Chief Minister and T.S. Singhdev. Why does Congress leadership have to make promises when they can't keep?
I mean, that you have to ask the Congress leadership, but it is visible. Look, the reason is, we know, to give Supriya her moment, we know there has been some issues in Uttar Pradesh, but eventually they will all get together and they will fight it together. You will not have a section of the party walking out and joining another party, which is what happened in Madhya Pradesh. You lost a government there. Please remember that. And there are multiple reasons for this. Of course, we can get into multiple, but that did happen. So when the center is weak, which is the situation right now in the Congress, then these eruptions will take place. There will be people who will blackmail regimes which are in power. There will be people who want to, and they will make their calculations. Obviously, Jiten Prasad saw no future. And in any case, there is no chance of power in Uttar Pradesh for the Congress at all. So he just decided to go with a party that is in power over there. So that's how politics is. Okay, so there is a pattern here. You have had these problems in multiple states. And yes, other parties have them. They manage it somehow for multiple reasons. It's not, I'm not saying that the Congress is bad and the BJP. I'm just saying because the national leadership of the BJP is strong. So they are at some point, in spite of challenges, in spite of arguments, able to have their way with people who, wherever there are problems, they are able to assert themselves. The Congress is not able to do that. They're not sure whether Sidhu will have a tantrum, whether he will undermine Captain. I mean, in politics, it's a very volatile thing. And, I've seen Sidhu campaigning during the last election. He's a very good campaigner. But, I mean, he is a wild card. He's capable of doing anything and saying anything at any point. And, when you're going in for an election, in a state where the Congress should retain power, we all know that also. The Akalis are not in a good shape. The AAP, whatever, and the Akali BJP alliance no longer remains valid at all. But here you have, so it will get covered by the media.
Yes, Supriya, the call for introspection has been given from within the Congress. Leaders who formed that G23 have spoken about it and have said that there is need to realize what is going wrong with the Congress leadership, that there is a crisis on the top, at the center, where there is indecision and also that leaders don't get audience. For example, what happened in the case of Madhya Pradesh, Jyotiraditya Scindia walking out. There is also an example of Jitin Prasad. You cannot, and you come from UP, Supriya, so you would understand what does, you may say that Jitin Prasad brings nothing on the table, but the question is that he was seen as close to Rahul Gandhi, and for him to exit Congress ahead of 2022 elections, what does it mean?
You know, it's very interesting that everybody who leaves the Congress is seen close to Rahul Gandhi, but everybody who remains back, everybody who... But anyway, having said that, I love being the punching bag, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's what the media is supposed to do. I wish sometimes your blows were also directed at the BJP, but that's for another day. The same group that the nomenclature has been given by the media, the so-called G23, who is the head of our COVID, the committee that Mrs. Gandhi has formed? Ghulam Nabi Azad Saab. Prithviraj Chavan, hugely used in elections in Assam. All I'm saying is that these conjectures that keep coming up, that, you know, there is this faction within the Congress, that's that unrest. The reality of the Congress party is we are in our DNA different from the BJP. We are not driven by one man's whims, fancies and writs. We came out of a freedom struggle. We disagree, we debate, we dissent. We have our public showdowns, but guess what? We stay as one, and I think that is what makes us unique from the BJP. I agree with you that yes, we've got to all get together and fight these elections and definitely defeat the evil forces of the communal forces of the BJP, the forces of the BJP that don't want to talk about the common people, that
all
don't
right.
care about farmers sitting on a dharna for 7 long months.
Okay.
The question is to ask us, 7 mahine ho gaye Aarti Singh ji.
All right, Supriya, we have really come to the end of this discussion. Thank you so much for joining us, Supriya, RP Singh and Saba Naqvi. Of course, this is a discussion that will be continuing because we really do not know what really transpired in that meeting and how will Navjot Singh Sidhu react now after having met Priyanka Gandhi Vadra for over 2 hours. That's all from me. Thanks so much for watching.